Deadly riots breaking out in Greece over the government's plan to avoid defaulting on its loans. You see, Greece is out of money, and it's turning to the European Union for big loans. But the European Union says no, not unless you get your cash situation under control. So now they're making cutbacks in spending and raising taxes. And that has led to riots. And this crisis is having an effect not just in Greece, not just in Europe, but across the globe, including right here at home. There are bigger concerns. It could get worse here in America. Take a look at the market right now. Dow Jones average down about 200 points for the day, down roughly 400 points over the last couple of days. And Greece is getting a big part of that blame. Joining me now, somebody who has thoughts on this and who has warned about it. That's Texas Congressman Ron Paul. Congressman, thanks so much for being back with us. You've had your eye on Greece for a while now. This probably comes as no surprise to you.
No, not at all. And I think this is just the opening of a much more serious crisis than the financial crisis. I think what we're seeing is a shift from the financial crisis, the financial institutions, to a currency crisis. Even though the dollar is up sharply today and has been up sharply last week, I see this as an attack on the dollar. Because in terms of gold, the dollar has been rapidly devalued. And this means that gold is acting as money. They're giving up on the paper currencies. And I think this country and the world is in for big trouble because this is a currency crisis, and it's much worse than having a financial crisis.
You know, they say that, look, okay, what's happening in Greece is one thing. But if this expands to Europe, and they're saying Portugal could be next, the German chancellor says she's very worried and that the European has to bail out Greece because she's worried about it spreading to Europe. And there are other countries that could follow, Spain and others. If this becomes a European problem, it very much becomes an American problem as well, does it not?
There's no doubt about it. It is a world problem, and we're going to be the last one to fall, but because we have the dollar, and people still think the dollar will save everybody, and the dollar is going to have to bail out California and so many other problems that we have here. But that's going to make the whole world vulnerable. And it's a debt explosion. It has occurred for 40 years. We've known it has been building. We knew it couldn't last. And we knew it would end first with a financial bubble collapsing. And now we're in the midst of a currency crisis.
You know, it's really scary to see what can happen in a society when the overspending comes home to roost. You know, when you see the consequences of years and years of overspending. Obviously, people here are very worried about our debt and our deficit. Congressman Paul, could this kind of thing happen here? Could what we're seeing in Greece and California happen on a nationwide basis here?
Absolutely. There's going to be anger and there's going to be riots in the streets as well. But this is all a consequence of the fact that why and how do governments spend like this? It's because they don't have sound money. When we run up deficits, we tax, but never enough. We can't tax. It would ruin the economy. Then we borrow, and we get away with that for a long time. But we rely on the printing presses from the Federal Reserve to create the money. And that's where the problem is. This is why we have to look at the Federal Reserve. We have to get an audit of the Federal Reserve. We have to look at the monetary system and the dollar system because you can't have fake money. This is counterfeit. And we've been operating like this since 1971. No time in the history of the world has the whole world been on fiat money for so long, building up these financial bubbles, distorting the economies and running up all this debt, and it has to be paid for.
You actually think
that just the beginning.
You actually think that the Federal Reserve may be secretly bailing out Greece anyway, because we can't audit the Federal Reserve, so we don't know what it's doing with its money. You think they may be funneling money over there right now?
Well, they're capable of doing it, and that's why I demand an audit. But we do know that the IMF has offered them a lot of money, and we're like 25% of the IMF, and that money has to come from us. It has to come from creating new money. But what they do secretly, we don't know. But they're capable of doing it, and believe me, if push comes to shove, they're going to use the dollar because people still are trusting the dollar. We still have the big economy, but that just delays the inevitable and makes the downturn that much worse.
How much of this fall in the Dow do you attribute to Greece?
Oh, I think a lot, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. They're the ones who have been the first ones to fall. But then there's going to be Portugal, then there's going to be California, then there's going to be the United States government, and there's going to be all the governments. I mean, they talk about Germany being the powerhouse. Do you think they have balanced budgets and they're going to be able to bail out Europe? No, everybody's in this together. So Greece is just the beginning, because they were probably worse off and it was precipitated. But all the countries and so many of our states are that way, and many of our corporations, individuals, it's still debt that has to be liquidated.
All right. Well, Congressman Ron Paul, we always appreciate hearing your insights on it. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.